Kicking off the list at number 10, Poltergeist. The case that inspired the 1982 classic Poltergeist. Yeah, these things are real, apparently. Back in 1958, the Herman house in New York would never be the same ever again after this one fateful day. James Herman from Long Island got a phone call one night from his wife, Lucille. She tells him that bottles of different substances had their lids popped off. In different rooms, there were different jars and different bottles, whatever the case was, just lids were just popping off in random rooms. She heard the popping and had to go check it out for herself. One of the items was a vial of holy water. Herman told the family to stay calm, you know, there's probably a reasonable explanation for everything going on. The classic dad move. Less than a week goes by, it happens again, but this time, Herman witnessed it. Bottles in his bathroom began moving around by themselves by some force. The police came, no explanation. Then a priest came along as well, nothing changed. Lucille Herman claims that she still hasn't seen Poltergeist, and to be fair, I wouldn't watch that movie either. The Herman's house inspired the movie with weird happenings and such, but there weren't any skeletons jumping out of pools, you know? There weren't any skeletons attacking the family. Lucille also said that she hadn't seen it because she had her own nightmare. The actress who played Diane, JoBeth Williams, in the movie Poltergeist, said in an interview that while they were filming, she would have to go into a huge tank of what she thought were plastic skeletons and like muddy water. She later found out that these bones were in fact real human bones. Because yeah, at the time, human bones were cheaper. Production saw nothing wrong with this idea. Nice, that's horrible. So she spent like 5 days filming with human bones. I'm gonna be sick. That's the worst thing I've ever read. Number 9, the Snedeker House. This is a classic Ed and Lorraine Warren ghost story. It was the main inspiration of the Haunting in Connecticut movie. Ed and Lorraine got a call from owners of the home saying that their son was experiencing personality changes. Now at first, maybe you'd laugh at that call if he were on the other end. Maybe he's just growing up, maybe he's moody, whatever, you know. This was not the case at all. These changes were violent in nature, and on top of that, and another pretty obvious issue in the home, they were seeing apparitions just all around their house. Son's acting odd, and also, we have ghosts. There's one right there, look at it. So Ed and Lorraine were of course interested in what was going on. Old house in Southington, Connecticut, Alan and Carmen Snedeker then found these tools. Old tools used by morticians in their home. Yep, their home was once upon a time a funeral parlor. One day when Carmen was mopping the floor, it turned bloody red all of a sudden and it began to smell foul. So there was a lot of happenings going on. Ed and Lorraine came to one conclusion: demons. Number 8, the Villisca House. Skeptics have left believers. It's always nice to see that line on a website about a haunted house. You're like, cool, debit, I guess. Okay, where to start with this one? It goes back to June 10th, 1912. The Moore family was sadly killed, but it's a crime that has still never been solved. Not saying that ghosts did it, that's disrespectful. I'm not saying that this horrible crime was done by a ghost or anything spooky. This was somebody who got away with it, and it's horrible. But afterwards, the house, as you would assume, turned into some sort of an attraction. Guests would end up paying hundreds of dollars to stay at this place. Why do people do this? A paranormal investigator stayed there back in 2014 and then afterwards ended up taking his own life after just one night there. Whatever's going on here, just leave it alone. That's my opinion. Number 7, Mudhouse Mansion. Coming from Fairfield County, Ohio, the Mudfield Mansion was built a while back, so it's so old it's actually debated when exactly it was built. Best guess so far is that it was built around the mid 1800s. Good time for ghosts. I've heard those are great ghost years. The building was demolished, so if you're thinking about grabbing a flashlight and Ouija board, sit your butt down, mister. It's gone. It was last sold to the Hartman family back in 1920s, but come the 30s, it was completely abandoned. So the ghost stories naturally came in. More than fair, it looks haunted. Ghost stories would naturally come about just walking by that place. I included this one today on our list because this is where the Bloody Mary urban legend all kicked off. A family moved in, or at least tried to, when after they were seen unboxing everything, they all just suddenly vanished. Locals were curious who the new arrivals were and why they were so quiet right after they just moved in, but eventually police went to go check on them and they were just gone. They were just not there. This property is loaded with numerous urban legends just like that. The locals don't miss it at all. Like I said, it was demolished in 2015. RIP, see you later, ghost house. Bye, Bloody Mary. Number 6, 455A Sackett Street. Not to be confused with 221B Baker Street, 455A Sackett Street is a haunted apartment in Brooklyn. So no, it's not Sherlock's apartment. Imagine moving to the big city, okay, New York, a busy city that's known for being loud, for being active. And on top of that, and not being able to sleep, now you have ghosts. One lady who grew up in the apartment experienced these hauntings herself. Fires would just start randomly, there'd be loud bangs in other rooms. All around just bad vibes, which given what I said seems more than fair. Sightings were common of apparitions, but it was always the same female looking spirit. It was always seen via a mirror. And that, my friends, is why I don't look into mirrors ever. Number 5. haunted hotel. I knew tons of people who enjoy staying at a hotel. Like, it's cozy. I'm not one of those people, okay? I don't like hotels. Every time I'm in one, I'm always way too cold. I always think it's haunted. I'm shivering the entire night. If it was the Hotel Monte Vista in Flagstaff, Florida, however, it would for sure be haunted. When it first opened in 1927, it was home to speakeasies, gambling, just shady stuff at the time. A lot of smoke in a lot of rooms, Peaky Blinders and all that kind of stuff. Many of these rooms were haunted, of course, or it wouldn't be on this list. Specifically, the room 220. The TV would change channels by itself. Guests have felt cold hands touch their body at night. See, already at this point, I'm out. See ya. I'd get untucked and I'd be out of the door. Sometimes guests would also hear knocking on the door in the middle of the night with a small, faint voice on the other end announcing room service. I would throw up. I'd look through the door and go, oh, no one's there, and then immediately puke on all of my shoes. This is why I don't do hotels. Number 4, Castle Spirit. This one is the most recent, so buckle up. Tony Ferguson was filming a castle in England. He was admiring the old beauty of this castle, but when the 33-year-old looked back on his footage, he first thought that he missed out on a prank. He laughed at first, looking at this footage. He couldn't believe what he saw. Check it out. Is this ghost figure moving behind the window? Is this a person? What's going on here? This was at Hurst Castle in Hampshire. He also recalls that nobody could have moved around in that space at all. This wasn't the first time the spirit has visited that place. A time before, Tony said at first when he saw it, it was like this white mist, but then other accounts, it's like a white clay kind of fog looking. It changes forms, basically. It's definitely a ghost. I was asking to show itself and the white mist flew straight at my camera. I mean, this time around, you got footage of something moving. Whatever it is, it's in a video. I get more creeped out. It's harder to fake when it's a video, basically, that's for sure. What are your thoughts? Is this convincing? It's kind of convincing. Number 3, Raynham Hall. This one is a classic. If you haven't seen this photo, really, honestly, good for you. You've made it this far, you're lucky. This is one of the only convincing ghost photos that I've seen. Raynham Hall, England. Okay, this tale kicked off back in 1936 after a photo went around through Country Life magazine. Pretty much a viral photo back in 1936, and it's haunting. It's a spirit wearing a brown gown, and it's casually just floating down a staircase. Legend has it the spirit is that of one Dorothy Townshend. She was the sister of Robert Walpole, the first Prime Minister of Britain back in 1676. Some reports say the image is a result of a long exposure gone wrong. Honestly, either way, I don't want to know. This is terrifying to look at. Number 2. The demonic boy. It doesn't matter where or when, but odds are you've definitely seen this photo at some point. Normally you want to find something that looks fake about a haunted photo, but with this one, it's kind of tough. This photo was taken inside the Amityville house in 1976. It's a young boy with glowing white eyes. It was taken with an automatic camera that was equipped with infrared, and it makes it even creepier how the boy looks like he's peeking around the corner. A photographer named Gene Campbell took it, and Gene was working with paranormal investigators, you guessed it, Ed and Lorraine Warren at this time. This photo was revealed 3 years after it was taken on the Merv Griffin show, and many believe this is the ghost of John DeFeo, one of the boys who lived there prior during that 1974 event. We're still trying to cover this. What do you guys think? Elaborate hoax, or perhaps this photo is one solid piece of evidence that the Amityville house is indeed haunted? And finally, number 1, The Shining hotel spirit. I saw The Shining once when I was younger, and nope, not for me, my friends. I couldn't understand that horror movies were just movies, right? So that one did a number on my young brain. The Stanley Hotel in Colorado is now quite famous for its use in the Stanley Kubrick 1980 classic, The Shining. With the lodge being over 100 years old, it has a pretty decent chance of actually being haunted in real life, let's be honest. They have spirit tours, which are usually just for tourists, whatever, but when Jay Mosling was on one of these tours, they snapped a few pics of random areas. The classic, flash on, of course. After the trip, he was going through the photos and he found this gem. It appears to be a spirit, or demon, ghost, apparition, something that's horribly scary and floating, and it also has long black hair, it appears. The room was of course empty at the time this photo was taken, and honestly, I kind of believe that. Can't just snap photos of random people. That's, what's that called? Oh, a crime. You gotta go chill in the broom closet by yourself and just wind up a disposable camera. That's what ghost hunting's all about. I'm taking notes from Jay. He's doing this whole thing correctly.
Number 10, The Devil Made Me Do It. In 1981, 19-year-old Arn Cheyenne Johnson sparked controversy far and wide for a crime he wasn't behind, or so we think. While arguing with Alan Bono over Johnson's girlfriend, Arn stabbed Bono, resulting in the man's death. When police arrived, Arn claimed that the devil made him do it. When the words "the devil made me do it" came from his mouth, it sent the world into controversy. Apparently, Arn was possessed by a demon that had not been vanquished by the Warrens at all. Ed and Lorraine had worked with his family a year prior when Arn's girlfriend's brother David was possessed by not one, not two, but 43 demons. In order to save him, Arn commanded the demons to enter him instead, so when his dark deed finally occurred, Ed and Lorraine flew to his defense. The Warrens stated that at the time of the exorcism, and I quote, "Johnson leapt up and cried to the demon, 'Come into me, I'll fight you, come into me.' But from that time on, he was possessed." The Paranormal Society was split in half, but Johnson's team was committed. The court had defended acts of God in the past, like a lightning strike to a tree hits a car, you know what I mean? And now it was time to defend accounts of the devil. But despite what you believe, it wasn't enough, and Johnson received a maximum sentence but was released after good behavior just 4 years later. But still, the fact that these demons were never truly vanquished left the Warrens terrified that this might be the case elsewhere. Number 9. The Smurl Haunting. Jack and Janet Smurl sound like they should be like the leading couple of a comedy featuring Jennifer Aniston and Jason Sudeikis. But of course, wrong list. The plight of the couple attracted the attention of Ed and Lorraine Warren after a series of dark and ominous events struck, of course. In the 1970s, the family started experiencing shocking technical mishaps like their TV bursting into flames and toilets flushing by themselves. I know, do ghosts poop? Apparently. At first, they didn't think anything of it, but then the knocking started, in a peculiar pattern of 3 followed by terrible sudden odors, making the Smurls feel ill. The strange noises and smells were swiftly followed by sightings, and thus entered the Warrens. The Warrens discovered a presence of 3 separate demons, and despite 3 exorcisms, the family reported the return of the demons until finally they let go 15 years later. Number 8. The Haunting in Connecticut. The mortuary turned home for the Snedeker family in Southington, Connecticut definitely created the perfect breeding grounds for a scary story. One that left even the Warrens uneasy in their skin. First off, moving into a mortuary? No thank you. In the 1980s, the Warrens took on the case of Carmen and Al Snedeker, who were being tormented by a series of restless spirits and demons. So in this case, it's not just one, but many that they feared. The family reported the smell of rotted flesh lingering in the house because, I don't know, it was a mortuary, and that the taps would turn red out of nowhere. The eldest son was plagued by visions of ghosts, and both Carmen and Al reported being sodomized by the ghosts. It's a very specific activity. Which led to the Warrens making the discovery that whoever the morticians were, their activities were not always professional, if you get my drift. I don't know what's worse, the demons themselves or like the people who used to live there. Ugh, can't handle that. This was one of their most confusing cases and remains under scrutiny to this day, but the Warrens knew whatever it was had to be exorcised. But the question is, was it really, or is it just hiding out until someone else comes along? Number 7, the Enfield Haunting. I don't know what it is with the 70s, man. It just seems like so much weird stuff happened. We had serial killers. It's nuts. But it just seems like it's one of the strangest times in history, what with violent killers and violent hauntings. The Enfield Haunting took place in Brimstown, England, and remains one of the more boggling cases the Warrens worked on. Peggy Hodgson and her family claimed to have seen furniture and toys being thrown and moved by unknown forces in their homes. They even claimed that violent voices were heard and that their children were levitating in the air. They caught the photo of the girls levitating when the investigators set up a wired control camera into the room, which periodically caught images throughout the night. Whatever it was, the Warrens knew there was a demonic entity within the house and immediately set to work. Number 6, the Perrin family case. The Perrin family lived in the old Arnold estate, which inspired the scariest film I have ever seen personally, because if you've watched me on Central Dark, you know how low my tolerance is. But anyway, it's still awful. Yeah, you know it, you've heard of it. 8 generations of families lived and died in the old house and apparently never wanted to leave, or never could. When the Perrin family moved in the 1970s, the advice they got was to leave the lights on always. Why didn't you leave then? I don't know. I don't know how that didn't send them running for the hills. The house had been rife with tragedy, but one of the 3 people who took their own lives was an alleged Satanist whose activity was responsible for the possession of the house. Her name was Bathsheba Sherman, who became a demon that Lorraine will never forget. The demon would physically attack the daughters of the Perrin family, with one reportedly seeing a floating head screaming and retching at her. Ugh, I almost didn't say her name, but I did, so we'll see what happens to me now. Number 5, the Shadow Doll. The Shadow Doll is literally the doll of your nightmares. The shadow doll comes from unknown origins but was kept in the Warrens Museum for safekeeping. But what we do know was that it was used for satanic rituals and that the thing is doused in black magic and contains human and animal bones. Whatever possesses this thing had the Warrens take it into their possession to ensure that it caused harm to no one else. Legend has it that if you take a picture of the doll, it will possess your nightmares. But it won't just be any nightmare. It will be the most terrifying you've ever experienced, and some have even suffered heart attacks from them. I know what you're thinking. Why didn't they just burn the thing? Well, what's more dangerous? A demon you can see right in front of you, or one free to wander wherever it chooses? Honestly, I take the spider approach with this. If you see the spider, you know where the spider is, you're good. As soon as the spider disappears, burn your house down. Number 4, Valak. This one is a little controversial because was it just made up for the films? We don't know. Valak is a real demon mentioned in the Lesser Key of Solomon that was introduced into the Conjuring series of films. Though her direct involvement with Lorraine and Ed is under debate, Lorraine's belief in the demon was very strong. Valak is referred to as the Great President of Hell and usually chooses to appear as a small winged, two-headed creature thing resembling a child. Valak is said to command 30 legions of demons, and in the film became the leading arch nemesis of the Warrens. We'll mention Borley Church in a second, but Valak was portrayed as a nun. But there is some speculation that says that they may have actually encountered him throughout some of their worst cases. Lorraine often said that she encountered a black, shadowy vision of a dark entity whenever she wasn't working on a case, and believed that she was being followed by something she couldn't explain. Want to know more? Stay tuned until the end of the video and make sure to like and subscribe while we're here. Number 3, Borley Church relates to Valak. We'll talk about this in a second. The grim history of Borley Church is the perfect setting for a horror film. The land upon which it is built used to be the home to a 14th century monastery, where a monk fell in love with a nun at a nearby convent, which led to the monk being hanged, and the nun was bricked up alive within the walls of her convent, which sounds pretty friggin' extreme if you ask me. It sounds like evil resided there long before Ed and Lorraine made the trek out to sort out whatever demon lay between its walls. Whoever did that to those two poor people, ugh, that's awful. This case inspired the famous nun apparition, as I mentioned, as the youngest daughter of the family who settled there reported seeing her figure. She was also pushed and slapped hard enough to leave welts behind, and that was just in the 1800s. When Ed and Lorraine visited, they obtained photo evidence of the hauntings. Ed captured the image of a monk leafing through one of the books at the altar, and Lorraine experienced a black entity rush past her. Valak. She remembered feeling an overwhelming sense of evil. A picture revealed later showed that the shadow of a nun was rushing past her, so that's where the image came from. So was it Valak? We don't know. Number 2, the Annabelle doll. You knew. Probably the most famous of the hauntings conquered by the Warrens was the Annabelle doll. It would almost be a crime not to mention it. Dolls are already eerie with their black, piercing, beady eyes that look like there's nothing there. But in this case, the most terrifying part was the thing behind it. The case dates back to the 1970s when a Raggedy Ann doll was innocently purchased from an antique store for her daughter. Soon the doll began raising alarm when it would change positions in the house, boggling its owners. But when the notes started showing up saying "help me" and "help Lou," then they came home to find it covered in blood, and they decided then that they needed to call a professional. The first medium they called in said it was just the spirit of a girl who passed away, but then the owner, Angie's boyfriend, was attacked. Enter the Warrens. They knew the doll was in fact a demon based on the marks of the beast and other encounters. They removed the doll and took it home, vowing not to take the highway, concerned that whatever was within the doll might cause an accident. Indeed, their brakes stalled or failed several times on their way home, putting their life in jeopardy several times. It wasn't until Ed doused the doll in holy water that the problem desisted. The couple was so concerned about the doll that Ed routinely said a prayer over the doll every single night. Alright, number 1, the Amityville horror case. The setting: Amityville, Long Island in 1975. A place rife with satanic manifestations set on driving whoever entered to violent madness. As soon as I even say Amityville, you know where this is going. One of the most famous Warren cases, this haunting continues to land on the conclusion that there are just some things that can't be explained. A year before the Lutzes moved into the suburban home in Long Island, Ronald DeFay Jr. shot and killed the 6 members of his family. So it's no wonder that during the first month of living there, the Lutzes experienced swarms of flies, loud banging noises, disturbing entities, and even levitations. The Lutzes moved out and left all their belongings behind, and George Lutz, the father, an ex-Marine and karate expert, so clearly a tough guy, wouldn't even meet the Warrens at the house. He met them at a Pizza Hut. He was that scared. The Warrens said that this case affected their personal relationship to each other the most out of any case they've worked on. This entity followed the Warrens home the very first day, and Lorraine described being incredibly fearful. There was something she just couldn't explain. To this day, Lorraine says that this is the case that haunts her the most, and said, and I quote, she hoped that this was as close to hell as she would ever get. Ed and Lorraine Warren encountered thousands of demons in their lifetime, some nameless, others all too familiar. Today's list featured their most famous cases and encounters that I don't think anyone upon hearing them could forget.
Starting off this countdown, we have Nazu. Sometimes otherwise known as Drooge, is the demon of death and decay. She takes the form of a fly and has a field day when someone dies. Right after death, after the soul has left the corpse, Nazu infests the body. The body instantly becomes contaminated and will start to decay. And if someone comes in contact with that corpse as it's decaying, Nazu will attack and infect them as well. So it's believed that no one should ever carry a corpse on their own, for if they do, Nazu will, and I quote, emerge from the nose, the eye, the tongue, the sexual organs, and the hinder parts of the deceased, and she will rush upon the corpse barrier and stain him even to the end of the nails. And then that person is infected by her, and they need to be separated from everyone else and live the rest of their life in isolation. Nazu has also been known to attack dogs. Like hell no, stay away from my furry friends. Anyways, this is one nasty demon you never want to come in contact with. In our 9th spot today we have Lamia, and if you guys are liking this video so far, then smash that like button for me. Lamia is an extremely violent, ancient, and powerful demon. In Greek mythology, she was the queen of Libya and was known for murdering every little innocent kid she could get her hands on. It all started when she had an affair with Zeus. When Zeus's wife Hera found out about this, she forced Lamia to eat her own offspring from her affair with Zeus. Disgusting. But due to this, she had permanent insomnia, so Zeus was all like, I can help you, and then literally removed her eyes. It's so messed up. She then went on to eat hundreds of others. This demon was also featured in the movie Drag Me to Hell. In the movie, it hunts down souls and takes them to hell. You know, drags them down, just as the title suggests. This demon is summoned by a curse that, when activated, will torture its victims for 3 days before it opens a portal to hell and drags them down. This demon also has the ability to alter reality, and it fills its victim's head with gruesome illusions. It can not only possess humans, but also animals. Literally, imagine trying to sleep. She would make you experience the worst of the worst dreams. And then eventually you'd just be driven to madness. Moving on to number 8, we have Amon. This guy is pretty terrifying. He commands 40 legions of evil spirits, basically to do the dirty work for him. In the Lesser Keys of Solomon, he is referred to as great in power and most strong. I think the visual description of him though makes him even more terrifying. He is just all over the place. He is said to have the shape of a wolf, but with a serpent's tail and a mouth that vomits fire. Not only that though, he can also turn into an old man. But not just any old man, no. An old man with a crow head and dog teeth. Like what the actual hell? Who the heck designed this dude? It's like it was done by an 8-year-old kid that combined all of his favorite animals together or something. In our 7th spot we have the Night Demon. The Night Demon, or Popobawa, is known to haunt the Tanzanian people of Pemba in the Indian Ocean. And apparently it's a shapeshifter. It can turn into a bat, other times it can look quite human, or it can just turn into different animals. This demon is said to visit homes at night and attack anyone in the household. It would go house to house attacking families all throughout the night. In fact, a number of real life attacks happened and they were blamed on this demon. As a result, men were staying awake to defend their house, even camping outside their house in groups. Others smeared themselves with pig's oil, thinking this would prevent the demon from attacking them. In 1997, apparently a farmer named Majaka Hamid, who didn't believe in this demon, actually got attacked by it. He was outside and said he couldn't see it, but he felt it. All of a sudden he felt this terrible pain in his ribs as if someone was squeezing him and attempting to crush him to death. He believes that this was the demon attacking him. In our 6th spot we have Pazuzu. Good old Pazuzu. He's the main antagonist of the Exorcist franchise. He is a demon based on the mythological figure in ancient Mesopotamian religion. In Mesopotamian religion, it is said to be the king of demons of the wind and is the bearer of storms and drought. He is often depicted as a creature with the body of a man, head of a lion, and tail of a scorpion. He is also shown with talons and wings, completely different from how he's depicted in the film. Now, Pazuzu in the Exorcist films ended up possessing individuals and makes them very violent. I'm sorry, did you see how Regan turned out in the Exorcist movie? She looked horrifying and gross. This dude is nasty and evil. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Zozo, who in fact might be a real demon. Users of Ouija boards would know this demon is someone you need to be scared of and need to look out for. So on March 24th, 2009, the presence of Zozo first came to light when a man named Darren Evans shared his interactions with Zozo online. He was playing with a board when he contacted a spirit who called itself Zozo. At first, according to Evans' account, the interactions with him were seemingly harmless. He experienced noises, moving objects, and flickering lights. He thought nothing of it. Then he started getting scratches and bruises on his skin. During one session with Zozo, Evans had to rush into the bathroom where his girlfriend was giving their daughter a bath. His girlfriend was gone, the tub was overflowing, and his daughter was drowning. He believes that Zozo was behind this. Now you see, tons of other people have then come forward and claimed that they have also come in contact with a spirit that calls itself Zozo. It is said to target mentally unstable and vulnerable users. Zozo has even been linked to a number of murders and people that have taken their own lives. In fact, this entity dates back to 1816. It is mentioned in the book Dictionnaire Infernal by Colin de Plancy. This book tells the story of a young girl who gets possessed by 3 demons: Minnie, Capulet, and Zozo. It's said that if Zozo reveals itself while you're using an Ouija board, then you gotta end the session immediately before you become its next victim. So can we all agree that this demon is horrifying and should never be messed with? Moving on, at number 4 we have Incubus. The Incubus is a male demon that preys on young women in their sleep. He visits them in their dreams and tries to engage in sexual activities with them. One of his goals is to impregnate the women, who then will give birth to its demon baby. There have been a number of real stories of women being visited by this demon in their sleep. They have woken up in the middle of the night and have felt the incubus demon holding them down. Others have seen a blurry silhouette of this demon on them while feeling it caress their body. But no matter what you do, you can't move, you can't get it off of you, you're just stuck there. In fact, sleep paralysis is widely considered to be the work of the incubus and succubus demons. In our 3rd spot we have the succubus demon. So I talked about incubus, it's time to talk about the female counterpart, succubus. Succubus dates back to medieval times. It's a demon that can transform themselves into attractive females to seduce men and engage in sexual activity with them. Then it's said that they can eat a man's soul, or if the men are repeatedly visited by her in their dreams, then she can cause death. Again, just like the incubus demon, a lot of people have said that they have been visited by a succubus demon in their dreams. They're unable to move but feel this demon on their body taking advantage of them. In our 2nd spot we have Mara. In Old Norse, Mara is a demon that would sneak into people's rooms at night and sit down on their bodies. By doing so, it would plague their mind with bad dreams. Mara was also sometimes referred to as Mora or mares, which comes from the word nightmares. Whoever got visited by this demon would wake up unable to move with that heavy feeling in their chest from Mara resting on them, which is why she's often associated with sleep paralysis as well. It was also believed that witches could send Mara to anyone they wanted to torment. According to one story, a Norwegian king was sent one night and the demon crushed his legs and then proceeded to press down on his head and kill him. Yikes. Typically, Mara is depicted as being tall and very skinny. Like, you can see her bones through her skin. She's got massive long arms that she can use to hold you down, and she's got nasty little raggedy hair. I never knew this, but apparently there's a 2008 movie called Mara, and it's all about this sleep demon, and now I kinda wanna watch it. And in our number 1 spot today, we have Beelzebub. Beelzebub has a devil put aside for me. I swear I always think of Bohemian Rhapsody when I hear this demon's name, so is it just me? Let me know in the comments below. It's probably just me. Okay, so Beelzebub's name literally translates to Lord of the Flies. As a result, he is often depicted as an evil fly or as a man with wings. In Christian texts, the name Beelzebub is often associated with the devil himself. They would alternate between using this name and Satan. He is considered one of the 7 princes of hell, and he is associated with the sin gluttony. Now, Beelzebub actually had a huge influence on the Salem witch trials, which is what he's probably most famous for. He was blamed for possessing the souls of those who were accused of being witches. He's also said to be responsible for several demonic possessions. The most famous case being Annalise Michel, a devout Catholic woman who is said to have been possessed by 5 different demons. As a result, she underwent 67 exorcisms to try and get Beelzebub and the other demons out of her body. This demon also possessed a woman named Nicole Aubry. She was possessed by 30 spirits from 1565 to 1566. When a priest cast Beelzebub out of her body, a cloud of black smoke came out of her. And lastly, we have Father Louis Godfredi. He was also possessed by this demon and ended up getting burned at the stake in 1611. When he was set on fire, a swarm of flies flew out of his body. Yeah, no thanks, that's horrifying.
Starting us off at number 10 is Michael Taylor. Back in 1974, a beloved and cheerful family man without any previous criminal history seemed to suddenly change overnight into a different person. The previously non-religious man joined a local church and quickly became entangled with 21-year-old preacher Marie Robinson, who convinced her congregation that the power of God could drive out their demons. However, strangely, the more Taylor became involved with Robinson and the church, the more he changed. The once kind and patient man was turning irritated and foul-mouthed, and it all came to a head when he and the preacher were found naked together. This kind of behavior was apparently so out of character for Michael that the church decided to exorcise him, believing he was possessed. They strapped him down and allegedly exorcised a whopping 40 demons from his body, but it would turn out that it wasn't enough, as still 3 demons remained inside. That night, Michael brutally killed and dismembered his wife and dog, and upon being arrested, told police that he was possessed by Satan, who compelled him to destroy everything living within his house. Deemed unfit for trial, Taylor was ultimately sent to a psychiatric facility, but it seems like those last 3 demons remained attached to the man for the rest of his life. Moving on to number 9, Clara Germana Seeley. In 1906, a South African girl began terrifying her family after one fateful night where she was allegedly possessed by a demonic entity. Now, no one knows exactly what happened that night, but the next day she began to exhibit superhuman strength, allegedly throwing nuns around the room with a simple flick of her wrist while making inhuman noises. Terrifyingly, Clara would also speak in languages she was not known to have any knowledge of. But after a 2-day exorcism where she floated several feet in the air and attempted to strangle the priest, she was finally freed from the demon. Let's just hope that the demon died and didn't get passed along to anyone else. Next up at number 8, Robbie Mannheim. Interestingly, the case of Robbie Mannheim, which is an alias, was actually the real-life inspiration for The Exorcist. In the 1930s, when Robbie was just 13 years old, he decided he wanted to contact his deceased aunt. However, being so young, he made 2 very bad decisions. Number 1, he did so in the middle of the night, when the veil between worlds is easier for dark spirits to pass through, and number 2, he used a Ouija board. Now, not long after his 3 a.m. seance, strange things started happening to Robbie. Furniture would dart across the house, religious art on the walls would vibrate or fall when he walked by, and classmates even reported his desk flying across the room. Priests eventually agreed to perform an exorcism on the boy, but the demon was not so keen to leave. Allegedly, he attacked the priests with superhuman strength when they tried to free him of the spirit. But thankfully, the priests won this one and the demon was expelled. Next up at number 7, Julia. In 2008, Dr. Richard Gallagher, a psychiatrist and professor at the New York Medical College, revealed a haunting case of demonic possession. It is a little unusual for a medical professional to be the backer, as usually they are prone to associate the symptoms with mental health disorders. But Julia was a special case. Dr. Gallagher said she would change her voice drastically out of nowhere, from a high-pitched squeal to a deep, manly guttural sound. She was known to speak in tongues and reveal personal knowledge about others in the room that had never been divulged to her. Often she would levitate off the ground and was even able to throw objects across the room with her mind. Eventually, at a loss for what to do, Dr. Gallagher attempted calling in a priest to perform an exorcism. But this made matters even worse, as it clearly bothered the entity possessing Julia. Allegedly, during the attempted exorcism, the demon said they would be sorry for their actions to try and get rid of it. Apparently, Julia continues to display signs of possession to this day and terrifies all that try to fix her condition. Moving on to number 6, Annalise Michael. A truly tragic story from 1975, Annalise Michael is one of the most well-known stories of demonic possession to this day. She grew up a devout Christian, but strangely one day when she was 16, she passed out, and when she woke, she was never the same again. Originally diagnosed with epilepsy and depression after a series of terrifying convulsive episodes, Annalise believed she was possessed, and so her family began looking for alternate methods to heal her, along with encouraging her to stop taking her medication. After a long search and many turning them away, they found 2 priests who agreed to perform exorcisms on her, and in fact ended up performing a whopping 67 sessions over 10 months. During one exorcism, a demon allegedly spoke through Annalise, saying, "People are stupid as pigs. They think it's all over after death. It goes on." As the months went by, she stopped eating as the demons instructed her and eventually died of malnutrition. In the end, the involved priests were convicted with manslaughter and condemned for encouraging the young woman to stop her medication. Even so, the case of Annalise Michael has remained one of the most horrifying cases to date. Moving on to number 5, the Smurl family. In 1974, the Smurl family moved with excitement to a new home in West Pittston, Pennsylvania. But little did they know they were about to enter the worst 12 years of their life. The first inkling that something was gravely wrong happened when their home renovations were found destroyed. Their new wallpaper was peeled from the walls, freshly painted windows were cracked. But to top it off, a strange odor filled every room and disturbing voices were heard throughout the house. From there, things escalated and the demon began hurting the family members, reportedly throwing the dog and one of the daughters down the stairs on separate occasions, as well as routinely committing SA on female members of the family in the night. Eventually, turmoil got so bad by 1986 that the Smurls contacted Ed and Lorraine Warren for help. Upon the investigators' arrival, Lorraine believed that the home was infested with 4 spirits: a harmless elderly woman, an old man who had died at the house, a young and violent girl, and a demon that controlled the other spirits and had turned them against the family. Thankfully, the incidents stopped by October 1986, but still the family hightailed it out of there and moved back to Wilkes-Barre. Coming in at number 4, the Armstrong Street House. In 1970, a couple named Anne and Roger Brock moved their family into a beautiful 4-bedroom house in Kokomo, Indiana. The family didn't have a ton of money, but they were able to score the house for just $5 grand, which, in hindsight, could have been a clue. Mere hours after the family moved in, they began to experience strange things. Lights were flickering and noises were appearing, but they brushed it off as nothing. Then one night, one of their daughters, Lana, was awoken by sudden shaking all around her bed. She thought it was an earthquake at first, but then she looked out her window to see a strange man, seemingly drenched, standing right beside her bedroom window, staring at her. Lana freaked out, but then as quickly as he appeared, he was gone. This became routine for poor Lana, and demons started haunting her every night. One night, she heard a knock at her door, and assuming it was her parents, she went to answer it, only to have her mouth covered by an invisible hand. She tried to scream, but the hand wouldn't let her. Suddenly, her dog appeared and distracted the entity, allowing Lana to scream for help, but this only angered the spirit. To get back at her, it picked up the dog and threw it out the window, sending it plunging to its demise. Years later, they learned that someone was killed in the house, which could explain their haunting, but still, not a single family member has ever dared to return. Moving on to number 3, the House of Death. Once the home of actress and poet Jan Bryant Bartel in the 60s, this house holds a reputation for housing some of the most demonic entities in all of New York City. Within weeks of moving in, Jan knew something was deeply wrong with the house. She would often feel the touch of an icy hand across the back of her neck or hear footsteps follow her around the empty house. The house always reeked like something was rotten or dying, and her dogs were always barking into nothingness. Then one day, one of her dogs died out of nowhere, so she decided to take matters into her own hands and called a psychic medium. But this only angered the demons living inside. During the first session, the medium went into an unusual trance, speaking about the hundreds of bodies buried underneath the house. Jan knew it wasn't the medium speaking, and it was then that she learned how many people had been killed or taken their own lives while living here. Then, all of a sudden, the medium's eyes bulged out of her head and she started shouting that she would never leave in a deep demonic voice. This encounter was enough for Jan to leave and never return. But sadly, a few years later, after publishing a book about her life in the haunted house, she took her own life. Moving on to number 2, the haunting of Esther Cox. In 1878, in Nova Scotia, Canada, a young woman named Esther Cox was violently assaulted by a male friend and left that encounter never the same again. Not only was this woman reeling from the real-life harm and metaphorical demons to overcome, but soon enough, another demon began to make itself known too. One night, Esther's body began to swell as she alternated between high fevers and shivering icy lows. And after objects in the house began to fly around, her family worried something worse than a fever was around. For good measure, a doctor was called, but allegedly when he arrived, he saw the words, "Esther Cox, you are mine to kill," appear on the wall at the end of her bed. Once Esther had a semblance of energy, she tried to move, but she quickly discovered the demon was not attached to the house, it was attached to her and was following her no matter where she went. Among the demon's tactics were the setting of small fires, one of which burned down Cox's host's farmhouse and resulted in her serving jail time for arson. Eventually, attempts to communicate with the spirit through seance and spirit rapping revealed that there were at least 5 different ghosts following Cox around for unknown reasons. And last up in our number 1 spot, Maria Jose Ferreira. In 1965 Brazil, a young girl by the name of Maria Jose Ferreira tragically became the target of a malicious poltergeist. In the beginning, the angry spirit would manifest stones and bricks out of nowhere and target Maria with various attacks. These included scratches, slaps, and bites, which often left her battered and bruised. She was confused, and her family couldn't understand what was happening to her or why this demon had chosen her as a target. So they decided to call upon an exorcist to see if they could free their sweet girl from the demon's grasp. But sadly, a visit by an exorcist did little to help, but instead provoked the spirit even further, to the point where it was setting Maria on fire in public places, in full view of many witnesses unconnected to the case. Now at a loss for where to turn, the family brought their daughter to a medium for answers, and it was here the medium claimed that Maria had apparently been a witch in a previous life, and was now being tormented by the spirits her previous incarnation had sent to their deaths with black magic, the poltergeist being one of them. The medium implored the spirits to leave the innocent girl alone, but it didn't work, and after years of torment, Maria took her own life to escape her living hell.
Starting us off with number 10 is the Perron family haunting. Why do all family hauntings start with them moving to a new house? I feel like that's the starting point of every horror film I've ever seen. But anyway, this case revolves around Roger and Carolyn Perron, who moved with their 5 daughters to a new home in Harrisville, Rhode Island. However, what they didn't know before moving in were the horrible things that took place in the house before they moved. 8 generations generations of the same family lived and died in that house, and the worst spirit there was called Bathsheba Sherman, who lived there with her 4 kids, 3 of which died in that house. These deaths caused a lot of suspicion to circulate around Sherman, and she was labeled a Satanist. She eventually hung herself in her backyard and began haunting the families that lived in the house. She wasn't all bad, I mean she helped them with their chores, and she even played with their children. But the family also saw furniture moving on its own, they heard disembodied voices at different times of the day, and saw full ghost appearances. Sherman hated Carolyn as she was the mother and wife Sherman always wanted to be, and thus she used to slap and pinch Carolyn quite a bit. She even used to touch Roger inappropriately. Imagine a jealous female ghost. I mean, jealous females that are alive are bad enough, let alone a dead one. When they brought in Ed and Lorraine in 1974, that actually provoked Sherman even more, so that the Perrons actually just asked the Warrens to leave. Has anyone seen The Conjuring? Well, that's also based off this family. Little tidbit of information for you. Coming at number 9 is Annabelle. Just like the 2014 Conjuring spin-off, which I saw and was a bit spooked by, I'm not gonna lie. So the real story takes place in the year 1970 when a mum bought her daughter a Raggedy Ann doll from an antique store. Daughter put the doll in her bed and left her there. But soon enough, the doll started changing position, and initially they thought it was because the bed was being nudged or whatever the hell, but they soon changed their minds. The doll made itself even more at home, changing rooms even, and leaving notes around the house which read "Help Lou" and "Help me." They lived in a home with other people, and the doll even strangled one of the housemates' fiancés in bed. The last straw was when they came home one night to discover the doll covered in blood. Whose blood? I have no clue, let's just not think about it or talk about it. The duo called an expert who told them the spirit of the doll was called Annabelle, and she was a 7-year-old girl that was murdered years beforehand and was just left to rot in a field where the apartment now was. I want to say apartment, but it's probably like a very old house sort of thing. The spirit told the expert medium it wanted to stay and be loved by the family, so the housemates just let it be, not knowing that there was no little girl at all, and it was in fact a demon with behavioral problems. They called on the Warrens to investigate, and they concluded the doll was possessed by a demonic presence. Well, yeah, no shit. They performed a blessing at the house and then took the doll from them, and it's still in their occult museum to this day. At number 8, we have the Smurl haunting. This one centered around Janet and Jack Smurl, and is also the basis of a film and some books, all titled The Haunted. Very appropriate. For 13 years, the Smurls experienced a series of hauntings. Strange markings would appear on their walls, the television burst into flames, the spirits actually threw their dog into a wall, pushed one of their daughters down the stairs, their toilets flushed by themselves. I mean, I didn't even know ghosts poop, but that's good to know. And they even sexually assaulted Jack many times. When the Warrens were eventually called, they found 3 different demonic entities living in the house, and so they called a priest to perform an exorcism. While that was going on, Ed said he felt that the temperature dropped in the house instantly and saw a dark mass appear just randomly. The entities even wrote "Get Out" on a mirror for the Warrens, and he apparently has a lot of audio tapes of the knocking sounds made by the demons. The American Society of Psychical Research said the whole case was a fad, but what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Filling our number 7 slot is the trial of Aunt Cheyenne Johnson. Now this was the first case in America to use the devil made me do it defense in a murder trial. Back in 1981, Johnson went for dinner with his fiancée Debbie and their landlord Alan Bono, amongst others. All of a sudden, Johnson started stabbing Bono with a pocket knife, and he ultimately died. In his trial, Johnson pleaded not guilty because he claimed he was possessed when the murder took place, and cited his connection with Debbie's brother David, and called the Warrens to the trial to testify. A year prior to the murder, David started seeing demons that looked a bit like the Thing from Insidious. There was no explanation at all for the bruises and scratches all over his body. Johnson and Debbie got a priest, but this only angered the spirit even more and made David speak in multiple voices and hiss. He said he felt like he was being choked by something, and he had red marks on his neck even though no one was touching him. They called the Warrens, who dispelled the demons from the boy's body, but then they actually went into Ann's body instead. After teaming up with the Diocese of Bridgeport and some priests, they got rid of 40 demons in David's body. The court still found Ann guilty of first-degree manslaughter, and he was in jail, but I think he's released now. Now at number 6 is the Union Cemetery case. If it's a cemetery, you may as well assume it's haunted before you even go there. The cemetery is located in Connecticut and is said to be one of the most haunted cemeteries in in the US and is home to the White Lady, who is said to be a ghostly apparition that used to rise out of the gravestones and hover around. And obviously White Lady because she wears either a wedding dress or a white nightgown. Many identify her to be the ghost of Harriet R. Seeley, who died in 1853. They say she haunts the cemetery looking for her son, who she lost during childbirth 1 week before her death. Some people visiting the cemetery found this gravestone and reported it being the only one in the whole cemetery that was knocked over out of the ground. Ed and Lorraine visited the graveyard, and according to Ed, he captured a picture or video of the actual ghost, which many have disputed. The Warrens even wrote a book including this case called Graveyard: True Hauntings from an Old New England Cemetery. Is this a hoax? Is it not? I don't know how they captured it on video. I actually haven't seen the video, but if you guys have, let me know if it's real or not. Coming at number 5 is a haunting in Connecticut. There's a lot of controversy around this one about whether the events were true, false, or simply very overly exaggerated, but they were still credible enough to be immortalized in the film The Haunting in Connecticut. In 1986, Al and Carmen Snedeker moved a house to be closer to the hospital that was treating their son. See, I told you it's always when people move house when something goes wrong. The house was formerly a funeral home with a graveyard outside and a mortuary in the basement. Honestly, with those factors, they should have just almost expected getting haunted. Seriously. The couple reported seeing their dishes moving on their own, water turning blood red, lights flickering as always in every horror story, the smell of decaying flesh, and seeing the dead. They even claimed the spirits sodomized them. When they called in the Warrens, they found out that the spirits were angry because the morticians used to have sex with their dead bodies. What else can go wrong in this house? After 2 years, the couple finally moved out, and people still question if all of it is true till this day. At number 4 is the Borley Church haunting, and people say that this case is behind the movie The Nun, which is another extension of the Conjuring world. Did that franchise literally just turn every one of the Warrens' cases into a horror film? I mean, are they getting paid for this, at least royalties? If the next one is based on any of the cases I mentioned today, then mark my words, I called that. But anyway, the Warrens and some photographers visited Borley Church, located in southern England, in the 1970s. They heard about a series of strange occurrences like a headless monk leaving cryptic messages on the walls, bells ringing for no reason, organ music playing by itself, which is creepy as hell, and even a dead nun walking around the premises at night. This is giving me goosebumps just thinking about it and talking about it. They ended up finding the ghost of a nun who was buried alive in the brick walls of the church because she was having an affair with one of the monks. That's a harsh punishment. They apparently caught the ghost of this nun praying on their camera. I didn't even watch the movie The Nun because Valak's face was scary enough. I don't need to sit through an hour and a half of jump scares with her face in it. Filling in our number 3 slot is the demonic werewolf. This case took place in Essex and centers around Bill Ramsey. Now, by the age of 9, Bill was already showing demonically possessed werewolf tendencies, whatever those look like. He used to try and bite his family before having seizures, and he was also endowed with impossible superhuman strength to the point he managed to rip out a post right from its concrete dwellings. At the age of 9, that is a feat. After this, he grew up, got married, had a few kids, and nothing was out of the ordinary until he started having nightmares and waking up to the panting of an animal, which he soon realized was actually coming from himself. He even admitted himself into an institution after he started craving blood, showing symptoms of rage like baring his teeth, curling his hands into claws, growling and barking, etc. And while he was there, he even attacked one of the nurses, as if more things couldn't go wrong for this guy. Years later, he also attacked a police officer with a force no one had ever seen before, and it took 6 more officers to hold him down. The Warrens were called after Bill told people to lock him up for his protection and the protection of others. Good guy, Bill. They called on priests to exorcise Bill, and he's been fine ever since. Now at number 2 is the Enfield haunting. This case took place back in 1977 in Brimsdown, England, and it revolves around the Hodgson family, and it also is the basis of The Conjuring 2. Told you, all the films, these cases. It started by Peggy Hodgson claiming her kids kept seeing furniture moving by itself and their toys being thrown about their room. Janet, her daughter, saw her dresser literally slide across the ground on her floor. They started hearing knocking coming from all over the house, especially from rooms that were empty. When the family finally called the police, the officers saw it for themselves. They witnessed chairs moving by themselves and lights flickering on and off. Legos were thrown around the room and were hot to the touch. Coins would drop out of nowhere, they'd hear barking when they didn't even have a dog, and their clothes used to be flung off of tabletops. The worst incident was when the iron fire entire place was ripped out of the wall. Iron. Ripped out of the wall, people. A lot of people didn't believe them, but when the Warrens showed up, they felt a demonic presence instantly. However, unlike the movie, they never performed an exorcism or anything like that. 2 years later, the hauntings mysteriously just stopped, and thank God, I don't even know how they still continued living in that area. I would move house straight away. And finally, at number 1 is the Amityville case, also known as the American Murder House. And this is at our final spot because it's probably their most famous case ever, and it's also the basis of the franchise of movies called the Amityville Horror. So this case is about the Lutz family who lived in Amityville, Long Island for a total of 28 days. I mean, hence the name of the case. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. A year prior to the Lutz moving there, it was home to the DeFeo family. In November 1974, one early morning, 23-year-old Ronald DeFeo Jr., who was one of the children, went around his house from room to room and shot both his parents to death and then killed 4 of his siblings as well. He claimed he kept on hearing voices in the house telling him to murder his siblings and his parents. So during the Lutz's time in the house, they experienced a series of horrific paranormal sights. They heard voices, they heard their doors banging, knives being thrown off the kitchen counters. George Lutz even apparently saw his wife levitating above their bed. And he was woken up every day at 3:15 a.m., the same time Ronald went on his killing rampage. They even claimed to see a red-eyed thing that looked like a pig and slime coming out of their walls. When Ed and Lorraine were invited into the house, they brought a TV crew with them and ended up getting a picture of a boy with glowing eyes. 28 days? I would have been out there in 10 minutes.
Coming in at number 10, we have a demon watching a baby. Hi there, demon. What are you doing watching this baby? You're a creep. An Imgur user posted this picture of a baby ultrasound and it caused some waves on the internet. They posted the image with the caption, "A friend's ultrasound. When you see it, ... The image got 931 upvotes and was seen nearly 12,000 times. Can you guys see it? That's right, look in on the right. Maybe we can get a little bit of zoom here. Hello to you, womb demon. Womb demon, 2 words I didn't think I was gonna say today. This womb demon looks pretty breast-delicious, so we can only assume it's a lady demon. What she wants with this baby, we don't know. Other people are saying this image looks more like a Hindu goddess than a demon. One commenter wrote, "I'm seeing a friendly mermaid. Everyone else is seeing a demon. We're all weird." That's very, very true. We are crazy. What do you guys see? Demon, mermaid, Hindu goddess? Let me know. We have another one from social media at number 9. We have the Wisconsin trail camera demon. This image was posted on Reddit in December 2012 and got 1.1 thousand upvotes. The picture is allegedly a trail cam image from a trail in Wisconsin. For those of you that don't know that much about trail cameras, they're motion censored cameras that capture footage if an animal walks by. They're usually used by wildlife enthusiasts to pick up on close images of things like bears or moose or deer. Anyway, this trail cam picked up an entirely different animal. In fact, some people are saying it's not an animal at all. They're saying it's a demon. It definitely looks like a ghost, and I don't know, it's somewhat tormented. I don't fancy hanging out with this ghoul. It needs to stay far away from my campsite. Demon or witch at number 8, you decide. We have some police dashcam footage here. Now this video comes from the Azusa Police Department of Canyon City. Police officer Malik is driving down a nondescript Californian road at 3 a.m. when they come across a woman who has started a fire. There's no real explanation as to what is going on here. The woman stood in the middle of a fire circle and we can't see her face, which leaves you to believe she's either a witch or a demon. Basically, she's some combination of pure evil. Even if she isn't a demon, I bet she's summoning one. Coming in at number 7, we have El Chupacabra. Is it a wild dog? Is it a chupacabra? A chupacabra is a legendary creature in folklore, a blood-sucking animal vampire that we're gonna call a demon for the purpose of this video. The legend of El Chupacabra is most popular in Puerto Rico. It also has spread to northern Mexico and the southern states of the United States, especially Texas. This demon was caught on police dashcam and the officer involved in the incident was totally vexed. The footage was taken in 2008 and has caused a debate ever since. Now the video description reads, "A police dashboard camera catches what some people might think is proof of the legendary Chupacabra. Is it proof that he lives and roams in the fields of the Lone Star State? I don't know. Now this animal was seen running down a dirt path along fence lines in a rural Texas road. Honestly, to me, it does look like just kind of a wild dog, maybe a coyote, more so than it does a demon, but some people are refusing to budge on it being El Chupacabra. Coming in at number 6, we have the Balinese flame demon. In 2016, Bali experienced some very dry weather that led to a number of fires. Following a fire at Padang Beach and at the Pasar Badang Market, the oldest market in Bali, another devastating fire hit Canggu. An image of the local 5 surf school in Batu Bolong was shared on social media. While luckily nobody was hurt in the fire, some eagle-eyed social media users saw something very unsettling in the flames. One of the commenters pointed out that the shape of the flames looked like Ugu Ugu, a demon statue that are used for festivals in Neopi. In Balinese culture, these statues represent spiritual pollutants emitted from the activities of human beings. And these statues are used in a parade and then burnt at the end as a process of purification. There is a really strange and sad irony in the face of a demon that represents human malice appearing in a fire, especially when these demon effigies are usually burned to rid Bali of evil. Coming in at number 5, we have a genie. This picture is from an Islamic website that documents supernatural occurrences and discusses early Arabian and Islamic mythology. This is reportedly a jinn, a ghost or a genie, that lives in the Hira cave. The creature was only seen after the photo was developed. Now, according to some sources, some Islamic news publications went wild for the picture, saying bad luck befell the photographer. Some even said that he dropped dead. In Islamic faith, magic is prohibited and considered an evil perversion of Allah. What is this genie demon doing in a cave? We just don't know. Is this a Dementor at number 4? You let me know. I love Harry Potter so much. I even have my own Harry Potter YouTube channel. I'm a Slytherin for those wondering. And whilst I may be a darker witch, I'm still not on board with a Dementor. Would we call a Dementor a demon? Yeah, I think we would. It's a demon that sucks out your soul, which is actually probably my least favorite kind. Either way, it seems a demonic-looking figure is spotted over the city of Kitwe in Zimbabwe, and to me, it looks like a descending Dementor looking for a kiss. The mysterious cloud formation looked to be about 100 meters long and loomed over a shopping center in the city for around 30 minutes. Eyewitnesses said some started worshipping the mist, thinking it was a manifestation of God, while others ran away. I think I would crack out my Patronus and hope for the best. Can you guess what mine is? Let me know in the comments section down below. Coming into number 3, we have the Phoenix New Year Nightmare. On New Year's Day of 2017, Facebook user Richard Christensen spotted a demon lurking in his Arizona hood. He shared the pictures to the social media site with the caption, "What the hell do you see in this picture for reals? Anybody?" The image quickly went viral, garnering over 100,000 shares. The picture appears to show a winged demon, perhaps a Mothman, standing in a residential street. Some people were brandishing it a soldier of Satan. Either way, national news publications picked up on the story and people were pretty freaked out. Some people say it's just a palm tree, others are convinced it's a demonic presence lurking in the southern states of the USA. Coming into number 2, we have 9/11 smoke demons. While we're led to believe that the world can change irrevocably at something so small as the flicker of butterfly wings, there are days in the history books where we can pinpoint events that change the course of humanity forever. One of those days is September the 11th, 2001, or 9/11. On this day, 2 hijacked planes flew into the World Trade Center Twin Towers, another into the Pentagon, and another crashed into a field. Nearing 3,000 people lost their lives, and thousands, if not millions more, had the course of their future altered. The worst terror attack on US soil was undoubtedly an act of evil, but some people even say they saw the face of evil in the smoke that billowed from the devastating fires that took down the buildings in Manhattan. Look for yourself. Did the many cameras pointing at the World Trade Center capture a demon? Is it the face of the devil himself? Let me know what you think. Okay, I've picked number 1 because actually it is so dramatic and caused some serious waves during its day. This was a televised event. Coming in to number 1, we have ABC's 2020 Exorcism. This one is so much to deal with. In April 1991, 29 million people tuned in to ABC's 2020, a controversial episode hosted by Barbara Walters that asked if demons were real. What made headlines about this episode was that it televised a real-life exorcism. In the episode, we see Catholic priest Father LeBear exorcise demons from a young girl named Gina. Honestly, she's off the charts in this video. She is screaming, she is being cray, she thinks she's actually possessed. The girl seems to switch wildly between different personalities. Her voice is strained and demonic, and the clergyman identifies two demons within her, Minga and Zion. Her parents surround her and pray for her recovery. Now, before she's exorcised, she drinks holy water and vomits. This is just very, very shocking viewing for the 90s. The exorcism spanned 6 hours, and afterwards, Father Labar believed that he cured her of a serious demonic oppression. Others think that she was just mentally ill, and to be honest, I don't know if she was. This was some serious schizophrenia. Either way, following the exorcism, she seemed to be cured.